platforms: YouTube UTV 124, Facebook UTV 124, Instagram UTV 124, Twitch UTV 124, TikTok UTV_124, and Flow TV channel 124. Remember, UTV, TV for you.
I can't
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. It is an absolute pleasure being here with you today. It is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021, and I'm so happy to be here with you. As always, let us say good morning to those of you locked in on our radio station partner, that is Hits FM 92.1 and 91.1. Also, if you are watching us on television on channel 124, that is Underground Television, UTV, I hope you're having a good day. Thank you for joining us. And also, if you are watching us on the different social media platforms like Twitter and Twitch and Instagram and YouTube and all of it, we appreciate it as always. And before we get into any of the other things, let me say happy birthday to Mr. Sugar. Happy birthday. I do hope that you enjoy it. That is coming from your friends and family. Miss Frances Rubb, how are you doing? I hope you're doing okay. I know that you guys, you're really in it together, and I do hope that you're feeling better. I know that you haven't been doing well, but I sincerely hope that you have a good one. You have a good one, and thank you. Also, another birthday goes out to, you'll hate this, but I must. Remember the time for my birthday and everybody was there, and Christopher and Brandon and some other people came with the cake, and I had to be like, Kanisha, oh my God, guys, but I won't do that to you. I will, however, do something that you probably won't like, and that is putting your picture up. Let's do it, guys. This is Brandon. Isn't he a cutie? He is the owner, major technician. He's a tooth bagay. I always tell him his back how big, so I call him Godo, because everything is on his case. I just want to say I appreciate your hard work. I appreciate everything that you do, and I hope that you have a very, very happy birthday. And thank you very much. Okay? And that's coming from me and from all of us here at UTV and your friends and family and all of that. Now, guys, we're going to start with something like an update. I know that Gaston Brown has apologized to the Rastafarian community, and here we're seeing something that hasn't been done, and that is this Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre also doing that and apologizing to people of the Rastafarian faith for the way that they have been discriminated against. Speaking of which, I heard something like Philip J. Pierre was a Rasta at one time. If that is true, if that is true, I need this Prime Minister to put it out there. We need to know, is that true? I mean, were you indulging in the herb? I want to know. But looking at where we are now, and I know some people call me, a few of my friends are enthusiasts, and they are happy that has happened, a change where people are able to smoke legally in private. And with that happening, though, there's a sort of, apology is being given. I know Aaron Alexander also gave an apology to the Singlish Labour Party for saying things he said, like the SLP will not do what they have to do with marijuana. And he said, you know what, I'm a man, I'll just swallow my pride and apologize because I was wrong. And for many people, it might not seem like a lot, but for what we've had in the recent past, which has been nothing but, you know, continued promises. Papa Lepo Bradley Felix Damem, we remember, Lucia, that he, you know, had the promises that things would be given, to the point that Andrew De Keres, who's been in this for 30 years, John Compton had him as a consultant for marijuana, and today in 2021, you know, you're seeing somewhat of a little change. So yes, not a big deal, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a step in the right direction. But since you don't get it normally, you don't hear prime ministers, people with power, apologizing for anything. In fact, if we remember too, your last prime minister would rather die and lose an election than ever say that he was wrong or apologize to anyone, or, you know, even come to the table with so many of the different organizations that we've seen. So yes, in that way, that too is a welcome change.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre offered a long-awaited apology to St. Lucia's Rastafarian community during a landmark debate in the lower house on September 14 to decriminalize cannabis possession. Rastafarians use cannabis as a religious sacrament. However, the previous Drugs Act made cannabis possession a criminal offense and violated the religious freedoms of the Rastafarian minority. The Labour Party administration has amended the Drugs Act, permitting consumption and possession of up to 30 grams of cannabis for adults. Rihani Isidore begins our reporting this evening.
The Labour Party administration has attempted to reverse decades of discrimination meted out to St. Lucia's Rastafarian community, whose religious rights were criminalized as set out in a previous version of the island's Drugs Misuse and Prevention Act. Drug laws helped drive Rastafarians out of urban dwellings and into the reclusive refuges in the mountains. An infamous police-led marijuana crackdown deep in the hills of Mount Jimmy in the 1970s resulted in several arrests and later scrutiny over possible human rights violations. On September 14th, 2021, more than 40 years since the Mount Jimmy raid, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre offered the Rastafarian community an apology.
The new legislation is the start, which allows us to develop a cannabis industry that reports show could provide jobs when fully developed and can contribute dollars to the government's coffers. And to the Rastafarian brothers, the government extends its sincere apologies to your community for the immense suffering that you have endured over the decades under this law.
On August 31st, when the amendment to the Drugs Act was initially introduced, NBC Prime probed a prominent Rastafarian leader who explained priority access to the emerging cannabis industry should follow any state apology.
This is an apology from the government, from the state, warranted.
Well, an apology with compensation, with redress to whatever has happened to the Rastafari community, and also giving them a pivotal role in moving forward. I'm not talking about any other organization. I think that the Rastafari, as Rastafari, stand by themselves, not a cooperative, not any of these things, but the Rastafari community stands unique, stands individual by themselves, and they're supposed to be given that role and that responsibility to actually trot forward.
Commensurate with the landmark amendments to the Drugs Act, which decriminalizes adult possession of less than 30 grams of cannabis, the JPA-led administration has also reversed criminal convictions for people previously charged by police for unlawful cannabis possession. However, as the Prime Minister explained in the lower house, recreational and religious cannabis smoking will be restricted.
You can smoke in a specified designated smoking area in a restaurant or bar, but it must be specified as a smoking area, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it also says, Mr. Speaker, that if you are at your home, in your private residence, you can smoke a joint without being arrested by the police, but only in the confines of your private residence, Mr. Speaker. At your home, in your yard, at your home, not in public, Mr. Speaker.
The government-established Cannabis Commission in 2019 published a taxpayer-funded report on the potential benefits of a state-regulated cannabis industry. The Cannabis report estimates government can potentially earn upwards of $79 million annually in licenses and tax revenue from a regulated cannabis market.
I just want to know, why is Pip blushing to say the word joint? And also, Riani, why are you touching the plant like that, like almost caressing so lovingly? I want to know these things. These are some of the questions that I have on my mind. But, you know, I do think, like I said before, it's a step in the right direction. That was in the House yesterday. But we're going to look at another issue. Yes, we've touched on it before, but it is something that I find concerning. Maybe I made light of it in the beginning, the first time it happened, the second time it happened, but now the third time that the former Prime Minister has been absent from the House sitting. It's, you know, you need to wonder why. But more than that, it continues to intrigue me, looking at grown men find ways to excuse and to defend and to cover for somebody that they, I don't know, consider their superior. And people like Fede, who's been doing it for the past 5 years, so, and doing that before then, because, you know, he was working with Butch and, you know, he had to grovel and do what he was doing. So I guess he's used to that kind of life. But just watching it play out, it is pathetic. So we're going to look at the first time it happened and the excuses being given by by his supporters then.
NBC Prime can confirm the Speaker was initially informed of the ex-Prime Minister's non-attendance via a WhatsApp message.
Now, I thought it fair, if people are going to ask, you know, where is the current Prime Minister? People haven't seen him. I think they maybe wanted to see more press conferences, more interviews, and I wanted to play it in its entirety, him speaking with his press secretary about, you know, whatever, different issues ranging from politics and the COVID and everything else. And some people, the same people asking where the Prime Minister is, they're not asking where's the leader of the opposition, and that is I think a real issue here. And with what has been said, that for the third time there has been this informal way of letting the Speaker know that you will not be making it in. You're going to be sending a WhatsApp message to say that you will not be making it to the sitting. I don't know any job where that would suffice, that, you know, you're an employee, you are our employee, and you will say and just decide to message and say that you cannot make it. I don't think that's enough. I also do not take kindly to Fede saying, you know, he has a family, he's worked hard. There are people who have done the same. When the business of the country has to happen and all you can say is that the Prime Minister took a vacation, you know what, you could give him the benefit of the doubt. Give him a week, you know. But right now, months later, the third time, how long will this continue for? And more to the point, how long will we allow it to continue without making this an issue? So, not for anything, because if it's going to continue to happen, we're going to continue to speak about it. I think it was a well-done report by Riani in really detailing the, you know, the circumstances surrounding this and what I consider to be Shasney's Allen's disrespect for St. Lucia and to St. Lucians.
The seat reserved for the leader of opposition business and Miku South MP in the lower house was again left vacant on September 14th during the latest house sitting. The only other opposition MP in attendance, Choiseul MP Bradley Felix, was again left to fend for himself and shoulder the hopes of United Workers' Party supporters by his lonesome in the lower house. Felix, on a third consecutive occasion, fielding questions on the opposition leader's conspicuous absence, defaulted to a familiar explanation: vacation.
Where is the leader of the opposition?
I'm sure you know the answer. He's on vacation.
But aren't you a little bit concerned now that for 3 successive House sittings, the leader of the opposition's seat has been vacant?
No, I'm not concerned. The leader of the opposition did indicate he was taking some vacation. The government has decided to have a few parliamentary sessions in his absence, and it's just a fact that he's out. He continues to provide excuses for him being out, which has been received by the Speaker, and it's within his right to have a vacation with his family.
The standing orders of the House of Assembly addresses delinquent attendance records. Any lower house member who fails to notify the House Speaker in writing after 6 consecutive no-shows must vacate his or her seat in the chamber, which can trigger a by-election. House Speaker Claudius Francis, NBC Prime understands, was informally notified on the Miku South MP's absence for the first 2 sittings he missed this month. Meanwhile, Gibeon Ferdinand, the Labour Party's challenger for the Miku South seat, says the opposition leader's extended non-attendance demonstrates his lack of interest in Miku South.
It clearly says what I've always said, that this gentleman only wanted to be part of Miku South, to be a prime minister. And the day he was not going to be a prime minister, he didn't really care about the constituency. That's what I've always said. So Miku South was the ticket to prime ministership, and therefore he has lost an election. He has no more use for the people, or he needs the constituency no more. So he doesn't care to be in the House.
Bradley Felix himself acknowledged the significance of being present to represent the interests of voters and constituents in the island's most august decision-making chamber.
I agree with you that there are sit-ins and we should all be present, but at the same time, the former Prime Minister, as I indicated, is on vacation. He has matters that he needs to attend to, and he will be in office when he will be in Parliament when he comes back to Ireland.
Any idea when that is?
No, I am not in a position to.
While the opposition leader's vacation continues, so too does the business of government that he forms part of.
It clearly says what I've always said, that this gentleman only wanted to be part of Miku South, to be a prime minister. And the day he was not going to be a prime minister, he didn't really care about the constituency. That's what I've always said. So Miku South was the ticket to prime ministership, and therefore he has lost an election. He has no more use for the people, or he needs the constituency no more. So he doesn't care to be in the House. I mean, if this is the 3rd sitting and he hasn't showed up, what does that say? It means that there's no representation for Miku South. But I'll let them know that I'm here. I've been there always, and I'll be there I'll be the shoulder for them to cry on when he leaves. So yeah, I'm here. I'm here for them.
And by extension, St. Lucians or United Workers' Party supporters in particular?
As well, I mean, if you're the leader of the opposition, when we lost the elections in 2016, our party, under Philip J. Pierre, our Honorable Prime Minister, we licked our wounds and we stayed together. The leader of the opposition stepped up and did what he had to do. If you're the leader of the party, he's still the leader as far as I know, and you're the leader of the opposition, you need to respect the office of the leader of the opposition. I don't care who the person is. There's an office of the leader of the opposition that needs to be treated as such. At the moment, I cannot say that he'll never be back, but the fact is 3 sittings and we've not seen him. So as I said, my campaign slogan in Miku South last election was, I'm here for you. So I need to let them know that I'm still here for them. And if they need a parliamentary rep, which I suspect they will, I'm the man.
Meanwhile, the member for Roselle Saltibus, Bradley Felix, has started his defense of the leader, saying that Alan Chasney has a right to a vacation.
The leader of the opposition did indicate he was taking some vacation. The government has decided to have a few parliamentary sessions in his absence, and it's just a fact that he's out. He continues to provide excuses for him being out, which has been received by the Speaker,
and it's within his right to have a vacation with his family.
And within his right, totally, I think I can have some time for that. But as far as the representation, I know you're from Choiseul, but the Micoud South representation, aren't you, how does it strike you that their representative, yes, he's on vacation, but the business of government has continued?
Yeah, but when you're in opposition, you're always in the minority, and it does not mean that you represent only the constituency that elected for you. You represent the country as an opposition as well, because we must not lose sight that there are people throughout the country that voted for the United Workers' Party. 37,400. So we represent these people, not necessarily a constituency.
But knowing that there are sitting scheduled, do you think he should be making a greater effort to attend, knowing that we're debating business of the country?
Yes, and I agree with you that there are sit-ins and you know, we should all be present. But at the same time, the former Prime Minister, as I indicated, is on vacation. He has matters that he needs to attend to, and you know, he will be in office when he will be in Parliament when he comes back to Ireland.
And every time I look at Bradley and the things that he says, you know, you ask him the question and he doesn't know. He doesn't know when the Prime Minister is going to be back. The Prime Minister is on vacation. The Prime Minister has things to do. The Prime Minister tired. You're not letting the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister tired? Leave the man alone, the man tired. So he can miss 3, 4, 5, 6, however many that he feels necessary to, you know, to relax. I don't know, but the country, you know, the business of the country has to go on. It is so pathetic watching men do that. And every week Bradley loses more of his dignity, and it's cringeworthy. And but when you look at these things, it just goes to show me that, you know, in time of leadership, in a time when you would think people within the United Workers' Party would recognize that Alan Shastney is the major reason why you guys lost. So all of the house slaves, the people that continue to defend him no matter what, Herod, where are you? Sarah, all of y'all that, you know, whatever he says, go with it. Zotutped, Melila, Ekipamem, Vinia Kaikosit. All of you lost, and he stayed, and the one person that is left, in a time when you would think Bradley will stand up. People in Choiseul want Bradley to, you know, be the leader. Maybe you could be Prime Minister. You have no ambition for yourself other than to come to the house every time and just look for excuses for a man who does not care. It's sad. And it's pathetic to watch. And in the meantime, you have the people that did what they did. Remember when you were doing things, no matter what Guy Joseph was telling you to do in Choiseul, you were doing it. Kote. He didn't ride in bike where, but that's the first time and last time we saw him. And he's just completely gone. And you have to come there by your lonesome, Akodi Riani, you know, having to fend for yourself. And you're realizing when the time is ripe for leadership. What can you produce? What can you produce? It's sick. I think it is sick. But even in all of this, I also liked what Gibeon Ferdinand was saying, you know, and in times like these things matter, you know. So tell the people you're ready. You see what that you know, you see how we're not there for you? I'm your shoulder to cry on, you know. Let's say Nomnaga Cornell, you know, I'm there for you. He's not there for you. You don't even know where he is. He doesn't care. I'm here for you. I like that. I like that. And I think for some of the right-thinking Micoud South people, you know, it will mean something. I take this, you know, it might come across as myself taking it lightly, but it isn't. The continued disrespect when Alan Shastney was Prime Minister, you know, all of what we saw in the past 5 years, and now as leader of the opposition, he has started without any dignity, without any pride, without any thought of others. And I think Gibeon Ferdinand was right when he said that all he did was use Micoud South to be Prime Minister, and now that he's not, he doesn't need you anymore. If this country, that was my major concern, that we somehow probably have some psychological inferiority complex. Maybe we had it before, but it's even more so now when we've been trampled on for so long that we don't think we deserve any better. Pas moi, I deserve a lot. I deserve everything that good. But I think for some, you know, you need to look at how you're being treated. And in the meantime, just so we understand what it looks like, the leader of the opposition office is, the leader of the opposition is so not there that the office is still locked months after an election, months after the first sitting of the House. So let's take a look at those images as well. We have also realized that in all of this, and with the office being locked and everything, the United Workers' Party had a press conference today. Well, I think it's even happening now. And you wonder, you know, back then, the opposition would have it at the leader of the opposition office. But since the leader of the opposition is not there, where do you go? What building can you go into that you probably won't have to pay for anything? You know, it's not... I think, you know, when you look at certain things and you can't go into the leader of the opposition office. So they are at Colony House in Alan Shasley's father's building. You know what I mean? Colony House. Again, the name itself, makes me feel very, very strange, but that is where they are without the leader of the opposition. And by the way, if somebody hasn't been to work for over a month, do they still get paid even when they're not there? I don't know. I think, you know, the leader of the opposition gets about $10,000. Not, of course, that Alan Shasley would need it, considering, you know, all he has and all he's taken. But it does give us room to think about, you know, where these things happen, and maybe we'll get some of the experts. I'll have to call and make some calls and try to understand what's going on. But I want to talk about the press conference from the United Workers' Party. They're having it at Colony House. It's still ongoing, and I found it once again not just distasteful but amazing how things can be turned when you're in opposition. So let's listen to Fede during that press conference.
That included, for example, income support to some 12,000 people who are registered with NIC, and a further 6,000 individuals who are unregistered, small business persons, hairdressers, barbershops, rum shops, bars, small restaurants, vendors. All of them amounted to about 6,000 that benefited from the income support program that we established, so that we can meet the objective a little closer of fighting not just livelihoods, but ensuring that lives were protected as well. We had protocols that this government is still using to reopen the borders. And while they were saying close the borders, and while we were saying that if we close the borders, there are too many people that would have been affected, the Labour Party didn't want to hear that. They did anything to win the election. They duped the people of St. Lucia. They misled them on a range of issues. They planned misleading voice notes to say and spread a lot of misinformation about COVID-19 and what was happening. Now today we are hearing that the same problems, or even worse problems, they are now encountering. It is my understanding that a very, very noteworthy organization in the medical fraternity has written to the government in the last 2 days to ask them to consider even greater measures. And a lot of those measures are geared at ensuring that we curb this spread that is currently affecting hundreds of our citizens. And so one of the measures I was told that was recommended to the government was to shut the country down. We could see that the government has had a certain reluctance to be able to do so, and we can understand why, because the Labour Party is not concerned with health science or economic science. They're concerned mostly with political science. And that is the sad thing about this pandemic. We're asking Philip J. Pierre and the St. Lucia Labour Party to lead the country. The country needs leadership at this time. The country does not need any more politics. It was suggested that they had considered an ethics committee. And the Minister of Health was very clear. He said that he hopes that Grenada would not have to ever use it. And so that ethics committee was set up in the event that Grenada ran out of ICU beds and they had to choose who to die and who not to die. This is how serious this thing is. But I say so to underscore the point that a small country, one of our neighbors, understand the severity of this crisis and they understand the destructive nature of COVID-19. While we are here playing games at press conferences telling people that we are waiting on the science. The science is clear, Mr. Prime Minister. It is very clear. Act now, act swiftly, act decisively. Now, I want to now allow some space for some of my colleagues who are here. We have a very honorable and capable head table that is going to address you today. So I want to ask the Honorable Bradley Felix, the MP for Choiseul Saltibus, to come to the podium and to deliver some brief opening remarks. We will all be here to take your questions following presentations by each member. So first, or as they would say in the Lafayette, you're opening the voting. Thank you.
Is that showing? Good morning, gentlemen. I don't see any ladies from the press. Gentlemen from the press, good morning, and good morning, St. Lucia. As an organization, the United Workers' Party represents a significant section of the population. And it is a section that has been reaching out to us, seeking advice, seeking help regarding, and also very, very concerned regarding the current state of COVID in the country. I want to make it very, very clear that I recognize not just UWP supporters, but SLP supporters also very concerned with the state of the COVID in the country. Whether you red, whether you blue, whether you green, whether you yellow, every single person in St. Lucia is currently concerned. And I dare say, and I will say, anybody who is gloating over the current spike or the situation that we are in currently as far as deaths and increase in rates, their head should be checked. This is not a political issue. This is a matter of the health and the lives of St. Lucians. By the own admission of the Minister of Health, he indicated that the Delta variant has a greater transmission rate, it is deadlier, and it poses significant concerns for the country. And by that very admission, it should mean that the government should maybe go back into history, into their own recommendations that they were making to the government when we had figures nowhere near what we are experiencing today. We have seen and heard from the various Caribbean leaders some tougher measures being taken. We have heard from the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, just next to us, very close to the community of Choiseul Saltibus, St. Vincent, that the MU variant could be on their shores. We have heard it is in Jamaica, could be in Barbados, and that really truly means that our shores will soon be greeted with that virus. We have heard some extreme statements, as my colleague said, from Grenada. We have also heard the Prime Minister of St. Vincent speak to about obtaining more body bags, obtaining containers for refrigerated purposes, because this thing is extremely, extremely serious, and we need more decisive action. We need our people to see that as a government, stronger measures are being taken. We need to be aware that we have coming up June Creole. We have the Christmas season upon us in 3 months. We know how our people are very sociable people. We know what's going to happen around that time. We remember last year, the Christmas season, when St. Lucians came from overseas, when we thought they would have been in home quarantine, they were liming all over the place. We need to ask the current government, what are their plans thinking forward as it relates to the Christmas season, the June Creole season? We recognize that there will be visitors coming from and family coming from hotspots. Some may be vaccinated, some may not be vaccinated. How are we going to deal with that? We also know there will be people coming for the Christmas season and also June Creole via the back door. How are we going to deal with that? We recognize the strain on our frontline workers. We heard the Prime Minister speak to the number of police officers in quarantine. I have a personal issue with whether this was a statement he should have made at this point in time, considering he was indicating to the entire country, the shortfalls of our security forces. We hear the strain, the firemen, the nurses, all of the people in the hospitals and the healthcare facilities, they are tired. We believe there should be a period where people can reinvigorate, rejuvenate, a period of sanitization, a period of reflection. The government needs to take that kind of action. It is extremely important that that happens. As a party, we think we are obliged to come and speak and indicate to the government that they need to take more decisive action. We cannot.
So hearing Bradley speak about all of that, I just find it so... Bradley and, of course, Fede, because they're the ones that's there. But people are coming out now, the United Workers' Party coming out to say that, COVID is not being handled as much and as well as it should be. And you know what? I think we need to delve into it. There are a lot of things that have been said by these people, by what's his name, Fede and Bradley. Fede speaks of Grenada and what Grenada has, an ethics committee where they have to decide on who gets to live and who gets to die. They're looking outwardly at what's going on, and also with Bradley still, strangely enough, now talking about the back door. But now we're talking and about bringing back the back door. And we remember what that was like when the former Prime Minister brought it up, and up to now the CMO would give no credence to it. But these are the things that are being said. So about 10 minutes long, I wanted us to hear what exactly the United Workers' Party, what they're pushing right now, that nothing is being done. But I also want us to go back recently to what I have seen and what I have said, that the United Workers' Party and the supporters particularly they might want to say that we're in this as a country, but there's almost a gleeful way of doing this. There's glee that people are dying. If we're going to be honest, land deban sahot, the same people that we say, and that's not sahot, that is just despicable to say it right for that to happen. So let's take a look at the images of Fede. We've heard it just earlier this week, but I think with everything going on, we need to bring it back. So with all of the talk and press conferences, there are images with Fede, speaking about, you voted flubble. Let's take a look at that. just so we could see what exactly is going on there. It says today is Yellow Friday. Hope you have on your yellow. I voted for Flubble. So with all of the deaths and everything, it's not their fault because they voted for Flubble. Let's take a look at the next one, where we see other individuals saying the same thing. United Workers Party supporters, y'all voted Flubble, proud Flubble. Don't blame us, y'all voted Flubble, okay? And to the next one as well. And that one, we remember, it really affected me because I thought it was so despicable that there was a woman, 26-year-old, who died. I said this earlier, died in Vieux Fort. She's a mother of two, coming from a family in the South. And because she's a St. Lucia Labour Party supporter, there was no sort of remorse, no sort of condolences being given to her and to her family. Instead, United Workers Party supporters would say the most despicable comment ever. Let's take a look at the next one, the response to this woman's death. Somebody says, it's sad she was advocating so much for this current government during elections time for her, and for her to die due to the mishandling of people she held in such high regard. Somebody continues, she was paid in full. She was paid in full. She right to die. Accept my condolences. So this is where we are if we're going to be speaking very frankly on what the United Workers Party at this time represents. And if it's going to, you know, not just be on Facebook, but now they're having a sort of understanding, like, you know, a coordinated effort to make it look like, you know, everything that the former administration said was wrong, then this is where we are. And seeing it now in a press conference with so many lies being said, so we need to set this straight. When we speak of shutting down the country, people want that, they're saying that, and even the CMO will say that there is no need for it because there is a vaccine. Even the former Prime Minister Shastin, that y'all put on an altar, y'all put on a pedestal, he too said that they only shut down, the time that they shut down was because there was no vaccine, and all there was hand sanitizing, and that wouldn't be enough. So now with the vaccine present, I don't know what you're missing to hear, what you'll need to understand what's going on. And as for Fede coming out to say that he doesn't understand the handling of the situation, Philip J. Pierre and them, they can speak for themselves. But from where I stand, Fede should shut up. Shut up when he's speaking about COVID, because he was the head of the task force and all he cared about was tourism and making sure the tourists were okay. And just so we understand, if you need to be reminded, it will be my pleasure to remind you of what Fede had to say during COVID when people were seeing tourists without masks. When we were concerned about where we were going, when we were concerned about second testing, none of it mattered except that we as a country, we needed to open, we needed to make sure that the guests felt familiar. So if we do have to speak about which and what and who's taking responsibility and whether COVID is a priority, Fede, you don't have any ground to stand on that one.
Fede attempted to dispel rumors that tourists are permitted to roam free.
And people in the yachting sector would be here for about 14 days. So there's a quarantine experience on the vessels that then when they're finished with that experience, they're then cleared to go into our communities, just as returning nationals who are coming from COVID hotspots. So I want to make that clear as well. A lot of the individuals that are here on yachting experiences are also coming from safe countries that are within the bubble. And that is another consideration as well, which would tremendously reduce the risk of any transfer of the virus from one person to another.
Fede also warned against discrimination based on color or skin tone. He told the public to refrain from assumptions and instead rely on scientific evidence.
We must also be cognizant that there are also a lot of tourist-looking people who live in our country. We are a very diverse country that are of many races, and I think we have to be very careful not to stigmatize any particular race. But what we want to do is to make sure that we do our research and we quantify and qualify the various positions that we would take. I do understand the anxiety, but what we have to do is to allow the science to rule and prevail. And once the science and the professional positions from our various institutions are allowed to be the prevailing view, then I believe that we would do a better job at ensuring that we just don't take blanket or emotional positions.
Tourism Minister Dominic Fady has given more insight behind government's decision to, for now, opt out of instituting mandatory second testing for the island's international visitors. Following a November 27 NEMAC meeting, Fady, who also chairs St. Lucia's COVID-19 Command Center, explained subjecting holidaymakers to additional COVID-19 testing will annihilate the tourism industry. He says more COVID-19 testing will require visitors to spend more time in quarantine and less time enjoying their stay on island.
The United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention has elevated its travel health notice for St. Lucia to a level 3 advisory. Americans are advised to cancel all non-essential travel to the island. Presently, St. Lucia is the only Eastern Caribbean country with a high-level advisory from the CDC. U.S. citizens returning from their St. Lucia holiday will be required to undergo COVID-19 testing and mandatory quarantining upon their return stateside. Tourism Minister Dominic Fady has done the math, and by his accounting, the island's visitors would stand to lose out on their vacation stay should policymakers decide to institute mandatory second testing for arrivals from high-risk COVID-19 countries. Fady addressed reporters during last Friday's news briefing.
Most of the people that come, the number one market is from the U.S. You have 7 nights, 5 to 7 nights is their length of stay. Now, if you take 2 days out of that for travel, 2 days is already gone. If you institute a testing mechanism which then requires the guests to quarantine in their room for another 48 hours, another 2 days are gone. So it really leaves a guest that's coming for 5 days with 1 day to vacation. And then secondly as well, you have a scenario where those that are coming for 7 days would be here for only 3 days. So it would totally annihilate the tourism industry.
The United States has entered a deadly COVID-19 second wave. Daily hospitalization and death tolls in the U.S. continues to shatter records and overwhelm intensive care units and emergency rooms. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, recently updated its guidelines to recommend that Americans looking to travel abroad take a total of 3 COVID-19 tests before and after their flights. More than 17,000 international visitors have vacationed on island since July. Since October, 6 visitors tested positive for COVID-19 after they were retested here. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar George, following a November.
So again, we are seeing, what has happened in the past. So right now, people can come with the righteous indignation at Colony House and say that they do not appreciate how things are being done. Fady, someone who says, don't harass the tourists too much because you will annihilate tourism and it will affect us. So don't worry about the COVID numbers. Just make sure you make the tourists feel comfortable, okay? That same Fady that had schizophrenic leadership because he's a Minister of Tourism first before he is the COVID task force leader. And with all of that being said, you get the feeling that United Workers' Party at this time, they want the shutdown, but it's not for COVID. Y'all don't want shut down for COVID. Y'all want it so there could be some kind of upheaval. So when you close down everything, the economic fallout because of that. Because y'all know y'all leave nothing there to give nobody, to assist anybody. So shut down and create some instability, create upheaval because all the businesses are shut down and there's no money to give because y'all didn't leave any. So you create the problem. You try to give us as if a solution, and this is what we're going to end up with. I continue to think that all of this is just showing us that we've lost our humanity in a lot of this. Because you'd think that with this pandemic and people are dying and all of that, while people are reveling in it, they thrive on it. They want it to continue so you can have press conferences and say things that were never true. You want the Prime Minister to shut down so you can somehow get some political points. But to what end? You also speak of, you giving $1,500 to people. People gave themselves because it's their money from NIC that y'all gave back to them. The $500 million y'all took in the name of COVID, y'all spent on roads. Need I remind you, these jours, I need tell much pour venir leur platform et parler bêtises? And we are supposed to pretend that we don't remember. So when Shasney can call Newspin even while he's on vacation and talk about COVID and the advice that he will not give and all of that, we remember. Y'all were not good. Y'all didn't treat us with respect. Y'all had COVID wardens bursting our ass in town, and when y'all needed to keep them, at least when the cases were rising, y'all let them go. What did you do? How did you assist? What? If you need to be reminded of what it was like, you'll forget the Hoff. You'll forget when y'all were nothing, when Prime Minister Shasney told people to come and give St. Lucian's vaccines that were still under testing, and let's just use it to see what can happen, and let's use St. Lucia's as guinea pigs. And because your country is a metropolitan area, then when you'll see how it works, then you can see if it works. Y'all have nothing doing. Shasney not even there. Y'all don't even have an office. Y'all the leader of the opposition office closed. Colony House. Y'all have to go and beg for Michael Shasney to open for y'all to have press conference. And so on. And I believe that the current Prime Minister will speak on his issue, but for me and what I have seen, the conversations that we've had in the past 2 years, it just doesn't make sense. And we'll open the lines now at 572-7588. And as you wait for calls, I want you to remember, because for some of the people under the lives and everything else, it really just goes to show that perhaps the strong man, strong arm tactics, that's what you're like. Or no, put you down so you can listen, so you to feel loved. Pas more. Like I said, let's walk down memory lane.
But if the entire nation is dedicated and focused on maintaining the highest level of implementation of the protocols, we can succeed. We must also recognize that all the individuals that I've highlighted, the frontliners and the wholesale workers and the retailers and the persons in the tourism industry, all of them that are out there taking risk every day for us, will be in vain if a few of us continue not to adhere to our protocols. And while the activities over Christmas and New Year's by themselves are not responsible for the numbers that we're seeing, it is and has been a large contributor to the numbers that we're seeing. And what we need to recognize is that the sacrifice that we have to make is that we must minimize our social activities. And the government has continued to try to work with the population to make sure that we minimize the impact on our economy. Because there's no point in saving people if in fact their livelihoods are being affected. And we've repeated to say that it'll be a very difficult and daunting task for any government in the world to survive a full shutdown to the extent that we had in the months of April and May. Too many frontliners have been putting themselves and their families at risk for all of us. And that some of us continue to not adhere to those protocols.
Remember that? Remember when he said there's no point in saving lives if you're not going to have livelihoods. Remember what the hacks were saying? That's not what he say. That's not what he say. Y'all misheard. Y'all misrepresenting what the man say. Nah. He come back again on Champagne to say, hey, I say what I say. And then what? Then you hear a hush. Then you hear a hush. A man who is on vacation that I come here in months, you will sit there and say, please bring him back. Please bring him back. What happened and they're not good? If it was, this is serious, but it's also laughable. It's also laughable that this is what is happening now. You're keeping a man that made you lose the election for the UPED because of Shastny. Who's the other one? What's his name? Herod was at the press conference too. He was speaking, but he not saying anything good, so it wasn't making any sense to put him on. Herod UPED ex-Shastny la. And that is what happens when you have these, these house slaves. You work for the master. You want to protect him at all costs. So the master escaping, keep fun. Let's take the first call. Good afternoon. We lost the call. Good afternoon. Hello, caller. Okay, I think we lost that call. So our lines are still open at 572-7588, and also via WhatsApp at 484-7588. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm a bit too riled up. I just cannot stomach that kind of thing. And with Shastny, I think there are other images. I remember when he used to jower us and off us. I have it there for y'all. If y'all forget, let's air this one as well.
Let us deal with the reality. We have our worst fear. Someone has been affected, we believe, which started from somebody coming in through the back door. That person has waited a fair amount of time and could have affected other people. The person who came in, who affected this person, may be affecting other people. That's the reality.
All of us must be shaming anyone who does not adhere to the rules, because in essence what they're doing is they're threatening the economy of our country, but more importantly they're threatening the lives of people in this country. There were brave persons who are coming in through the back door. And we still have solutions who somehow, I don't know, it's beyond me, honestly, that somehow can justify that in their mind.
And like I said, when you get people talking down to you like that, there are two kinds of people in this world, I find. People who will see this and feel insulted by it because you are a prime minister, yes. You are, just an employee of mine. People, forget the kind of relationship that this is. So this man can say these things, create this scenario of backdoor months ago, and Bradley now taking it still and running with it in September of 2021. Backdoor still being used. The continued way that we were insulted. For some people like Fede, remember when Fede was going into the house and Shastny, come here boy, and he had to run up the stairs like a little pee-pee wit, and run up because Shastny tell him that. That's the second kind of people in this world. That's the other kind of people. So when you're there trying to hold the fort down, I think it is pathetic. And for the people, the first set of people who will not take anybody's shit, no matter what you have, no matter kitty to nepot malahoni, respect me, and then I'll respect you. That's where I fall. That's where a lot of people fall in this country, okay? And for the others who just do that, and maybe you can get something, you can get a blind, or you're just waiting for any crumbs to fall from the table, just so you can be in the seat or around power. And they say, hey, I have his number, let me call him, just so people to, as if and then to see somebody in a bar and say, yeah man, boss man. That's the other kind of people. And for these people, stay in your section. Let's take the other call. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Trisha.
How are you?
I do. Not too bad, thanks. And you look trendy for us today.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Yes. I don't usually call talk shows, but I have to call because I do not understand how all that money was given to keep COVID at bay to the last administration, and we know how much it was wasted. That is that the current Minister of Tourism is saying he can hardly get new quarantine centers to open because the old ones are saying that they are owed money and they do not want to open up their premises again because until their money is being paid. And these UWPs are so bold-faced and coming out there in the government. I mean, they have no shame.
None.
Because what I'm saying, hold on, what I'm saying is that
Sorry.
it looks like they set up the government. It looks like they set up the SLP government to fail. So I think the administration needs to remind St. Lucians that this waste of money is very critical because right now there is a problem with more quarantine centers available. And we know as long as the people who have COVID are in their communities, the spread will continue. Thank you, Trisha.
Thank you very much, Miss. I appreciate that. We have another call. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miss. Hello?
Hello, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I am calling to make a contribution to what is happening. From what I am seeing, this seems to be a big joke. People are dying. Did you see this young woman who died in Beaufort?
Yes, I did.
And when I look at what is happening, it seems that it is the same to and fro that we are having again. It is politicking again. I am an angry woman. When I look at the number of young people that is dying, the number of bus drivers that is infected, the kinds of things that is going on, and when I look at you, you are talking and you are giggling as if it is a big joke or as if something happened to you and you didn't even know what next to say. This lives means a lot to people. Lives. It means a lot to people. And when you look at that, this one is on this side throwing bombs, the other one is on the other side throwing bombs. It is time that we stop that and come back to reality. This young woman who died in Beaufort was a friend of my children, and that was a lot of hurt. The family has other members that is infected. And there are so many other people. I don't even want to know the number of infected persons that we are having every day. It is just that my friends are sending me the number and I see it. But it is hurting. And as a woman, as a female, I think that this kind of nonsense you all have going on, they're politicking, it is time that this stop. The campaign is over. We are ready to work to see that our island gets better.
Caller,
so it is time
caller, I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
Caller, I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
But what is happening here is what I'm saying the truth. You may not like to hear it. You might like to see my teeth out, but this is the truth that I'm saying. I appreciate your call. I understand too that the politics is not right. And this is not politics, this is me saying the truth. When I say that millions of dollars have been spent and wasted on roads, that's not me making light of the situation. That is me telling the truth. So when you call in, I understand you're going through your grief or you're going through what you're going through. Call me, let me know. But as for what I'm doing on the show, this is not merely politics. This is the truth that I'm saying. So all of your feelings or whatever, if you have to call the show, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. But you are mistaken if you think that I do not take this as seriously as you do, just because you see me here and speaking. Thank you very much for your contribution, caller. People are going through a lot of things right now. I understand that. And with this lady, clearly, you're going through a lot. Clearly, I did speak about this young woman in Beaufort and what is happening here. We have a reality where the deaths do not matter to some. And that is what we're talking about here on the show. We talk about empathy. I believe in all of that. I believe that we need to treat each other with respect. But to do so, we need to make sure that truth matters again. So when people coming out, you can say it's not about politics. You can say that. But in the end, it is politicians making these decisions. If you want to see view forth and more testing happening, more vaccines being taken, it's about the politicians making a decision in how they're going to do educational campaigns. If you want to talk about politics, what about our healthcare? Just because people are talking and it has to do with politics, do not just disregard that as people just doing this back and forth thing. I am not with that. All I am doing is putting the truth where it is. If I were to just let people just spew all of those lies, what would that mean then? What would that mean then? I empathize with you and what you're feeling. I know that you are an angry woman. And for many others in St. Lucia, I understand what it looks like. Every day you just have this back and forth in the middle of things, and people are dying. People are dying. So when we do come up with this, when we do have the discussions, when we are going to the back, there is a reason why we're not seeing enough of what we need to, and that is because it's not politics. I say la vérité, nous pas l'argent puis yo gaspiller. I can't say that, so we can't say that. I always want to encourage people to call. Like I said, caller, I appreciate what you have said. And you have your opinion of things, an opinion of me. My back broad, a lot of things about me big, so I cannot smile on the show because, you don't feel good today. That's not the way I operate. And that's just the way I feel. Let's take another call. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, first time calling.
Okay.
I've been hearing that the science says that you cannot get COVID outdoors. Is it true or not?
What's that?
The science says that you don't get COVID outdoors.
Caller, that's untrue.
Now, they are blaming the rise in cases because of the election, the last general elections. For over a year now, you're getting lines at the bank with no social distancing. I'm not talking about that spread. Can you help me with that, please?
Say that again, caller.
For over a year now, we have long lines, queues at the banks with no social distancing.
Oh, okay. I get what you mean. Okay.
I'm not hearing that COVID is spreading there.
Yeah.
You go into the medical facilities, government medical facilities, there is no social distancing. They have crowds.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a spread for COVID also?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, caller. And you seem, from your voice, just hearing you, exasperated with everything going on. But I have heard with different banks, and I know there are some issues with bank cards and everything, so people are crowding up outside of the bank. Some of them have the tents, but others do not, and people do not adhere to the protocol distance. But I hear you, and as always, this is a place where people, I hope, will feel that they can speak their truth. And angry and sad and however else you feel, I respect how you feel, and I also hear what you guys are saying. But for me, in the way that I want to, and I have started this show, and in the growth that I have had, I will speak my truth in the way that I see it. And it's not just mine, it is the truth. It's unequivocal, it does not budge, it is what is there. And for some who may be misguided under the notion that this is just merely politics and some way to just do some banter, I do not think so. I believe that something has to be done, like many other people, and this should be bipartisan, like what the National Youth Council wants. But the reality is that it is going to be difficult given what has happened over the past 5 years and given the lies that have continued to be spewed there. So yes, we are hurt. Yes, your loved one has died from COVID. Yes, we have people who are suffering. The healthcare sector is overburdened. You have police officers who are, hundreds of them stayed home. The St. Jude's workers, doctors and nurses are home as well. My sister works in St. Jude's. I know what that must feel like, this helplessness. And I do hope as things continue with what we're seeing here, that this is the CMO's suggestions, advice. So when you have these protocols, the curfew, even then, I think there is compliance there's compliance if you have banks and supermarkets and everything closing at 6. For those people who want to come out for no reason, to kote feme, kisa waka even fedo. If there is 95% compliance or 90%, that is compliance in the grand scheme of things, because you'll always get some of the idiots going out. So in that vein, I would want to see us continue. I would want to see, of course, more of the protocols and see how we're going to next. I think Fede said some of the organizations, maybe the SLMDA, has given some suggestions to this current government. I wait to see that. I know with the SLMDA, nothing is ever given unless it is leaked. So, you know, we dare to see. For your loss in the way that you feel, and that's not just this caller, but to many others, you know, it must be a very, very difficult time there. And your frustration, the way that you've seen things going, this healthcare system, all of it, it must be frustrating to witness. And, you know, I do hope that you will gain some strength in all of this. And with all of us, I don't think there's anyone in this country with the way that things are going in the speed of it that hasn't been touched personally by this pandemic. But we must remain strong, we must stay on the side of truth, and we must keep our government, former and current, accountable. And that is what I want to and what I think that I am doing. We've come to the end of the show. I want to thank you very much for joining us, for calling, for listening, for co-hosting. It has always and will always be a pleasure. Thank you very much. I hope to see you tomorrow at 11. But as always, until then, please be careful, follow the protocols, do what you need to do, please, so we can see Tibodivli at 11. Take care.
I can't stay.